Good morning. We're going to begin now a Sicha Vayakhel-Pekudei. It's printed in Chelik Chaf Aleph, page 250. This is a Sicha which will speak about the different names of Vayakhel and Pekudei, go into the theme, go into the depths of each name of the Parsha. And as always, this is a Sicha part of the project Likkutei Sichos. To learn more about the project, you can go to project.likkutei-sichos.org. That's project.Likkutei-Sichos.org. Project Likkutei Sichos, Google it, project.Likkutei-Sichos.org. Okay. You ready? Page 250. Second Sicha. Wie gerät schon viel mal beneged die Shemes HaSedres, is der Teichen von jeder Sedre angedeiht in ihr Namen. We spoke about many times that the name of the Parsha expresses the theme of that Parsha. Was is eich be Parsha Senu. As der Name Vayakhel drückt ois, Nekudas hat-Teichen von der erste Sedre. So the same thing in our Parsha. Vayakhel expresses, whatever Vayakhel, we're going to explain what that means, expresses the theme of Parshas Vayakhel. And Pekudei, Parshas Pekudei, Nekudas hat-Teichen von der zweite Sedre. Pekudei, the name Pekudei expresses the theme of that Parsha. So the Rebbe says, "V'lachayra is the teichen for the Beide Sedres nit behesem mit zeir nemen." The theme of both Sedres doesn't correlate with the actual name. Unachmer, even more so, nit nor zanen ze nit masim nor ze zanen nor god beteichen hafchiz amizet kedel kaman. Not only does the names not express the theme of the parsha, but on the contrary, the name, which will express one idea, and the theme of the parsha, are two separate things. And he explains that Pirish from Vayakhel-Pekudei is, what does Vayakhel mean? Vayakhel means to gather. The asifa v'kibbutz from kam v'cham yichidim other pratim. Vayakhel means the taich that you're gathering many different individuals and you're bringing them together. Und der Unterschied zwischen dem Loschen Vayakhel agabe andere Loshenes was batzeichen dem einsammeln kam yichidim und pratim the asifa kibbutz Likkutei. And the difference between Vayakhel, let's say you're making we call it Shnas Hakel. You're making a Hakel. What's the difference between a Hakel and a Asifa? They both have meanings of expressions of meanings. So he says that the difference is Asifa kibus Likkutei chadema. Besteht in dem was die andere Lushenes bringen a reis nor dem zu neuf kleiben, zu neuf sammeln, at soll Menschen pratim in ein makim oder inyan. So when you say that the expression of there's an asifa, there's a kibbutz or the kita, so you're all bringing everyone together, but it's how everyone, the individual, is staying by itself. It's possible that even after the asifa, every individual is staying by himself. What does Vayakhel mean? Gemacht a kahal, you're making a congregation. Batzeichen dem klal, you're bringing out the idea of the people. Anoshim and pratim, nit wie atzire von kam v'cham nefradim, nor wie ze alle zusammen werden an einem Metzias a kahal echad. So what does Vayakhel mean? Vayakhel means you're gathering everybody together. You're gathering a lot of individuals together, but you're not focusing on the individual. You're focusing on the congregation. You don't really see. And you don't really focus on the Yechidim. Shenkin, Asifa, Kibbutz, all these expressions, you bring people together, but everyone is separate by itself. So that's what Vayakhel means. Pekudei, what does Pekudei mean? Vaspirush is Meloshin Minyan. Pekudei means to count. Like a minion, you're counting. Weiss efter oizgetelt kai von jeder Sache b'fnei atzmi. So you're showing how every single individual is by itself. That's what you're counting. You only can count when something has its own identity. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So that's what Vayakhel means. Vayakhel means you're gathering everyone together and you're focusing on the kehillah. And Pekudei means you're counting, which in order to count, every individual, everything you're counting has to have its own mitzias. Now, what's the problem with that? So the Rebbe says, Al-Piz isn't verstanden, based on this, is not understood. The Teichem for the Yitzvah said this is Be'efen Hofchi. The theme of the Parsha and the name of the Parsha is the opposite. Beide Parshas redden wegen Asiyas HaMishkan Vakelim. Says, aber da Chilik Ikri zwischen sie. Both Parshas of Vayakhel-Pekudei speak about the making of the Mishkan and the vessels, but there's a very big difference. Parshas Vayakhel redt wegen der Asiyah von Kol Chelkei Prati in Yonei HaMishkan. Parshas Vayakhel speaks about how the Yidden made all different parts of the Mishkan. The Yidiyas b'fnei atzmei, they made the roof, the Krushim b'fnei atzmei, they made the beams. When Yeder from the Kliyah Mishkan b'fnei atzmei made the Shulchan. So Parshas Vayakhel speaks about Kipshutei. There was Yidiyas, there was the roof, and there was the beams, and there was the Kliyah Mishkan, and the Meneda, and the Shulchan, etc. Now, the Chiddush from Parshas Pekudei v'negei Melachas HaMishkan, what's the Chiddush of Parshas Pekudei? Noch der Hakdama. Der Sachakel von Zav v'Chesav Necheshes, after the Torah describes the Sachakel of the gold, silver, and copper, tells you the amounts. Kumt als Amayman Musgar, Simam Super in Parshas Vayakhel, Asiyas Chelka Mishkan, der Sibur von Asiyas B'di Kohuna, und danach wird erzählt der Sachakel von allem. So, in Parshas Pekudei, first it speaks about the Sachakel of Parshas Vayakhel, and then wie man hat alles zusammengebracht zu Moshe, how they brought everything to Moshe. Der Tzivah ist Hashem zu aufstellen als zusammen der Mishkan mit Kol Kelev, zusammen mit alle seine Avedis, der Modner Bechlolis. And then the Torah speaks about the commandment of Hashem to Moshe to set up, to erect the Mishkan. Und wie Moshe hat das getan bepel als zusammen, Hakama v'Avedis. And then the Torah says, Moshe Rabbeinu bepel mamish actually did that. Bis is geworden ein ganzer Mishkan until one Mishkan came into being, und Kved Hashem Malayas Mishkan, and then the honor of Hashem rested on the Mishkan. So what's the question? If he says the Teichem, when he said this punkt wieder Heipach von Zer Shemus. So the theme of the name of the parsha and the theme of the parsha show on two separate things. Parshas Vayakhel is Teichem b'yachas la Mishkan, the Protei v'Chelkei Mishkan. What is Vayakhel? If you look in the details of Vayakhel, it's literally all details of the building of the Mishkan. Every single one with its own identity. Not the idea of Vayakhel. When Parshas Pekudei is the tzir v'chibur from the ale pratim. However, Parshas Pekudei, it's the combination of all the details. The ale chelkei pratim Mishkan werd to neuf zamelt in a mitzias kal Mishkan. That all the details all get together and become one mitzias, a Mishkan, a ganze Mishkan. Hepech der Adgosha from Pekudei Minyan gets out to get the prat from Erzich. So, very simple question. Vayakhel means you're gathering everyone together and you don't see the individual. Yet, if you look into the actual theme of the Parshas Vayakhel, it speaks only about the individual. It speaks about the Kalim, and speaks about the Mishkan, and speaks about all the Mener and the Shulchan, all details of the Mishkan. It doesn't really express the idea of Vayakhel bringing together. And Pekudei, which means minyan, which means you're counting, which that shows that every single thing has its own mitzias, its own identity. Parshas Pekudei, Fakir, speaks about the general idea of bringing everyone together, bring all the Yechidim together and making one klal, until you have Kved Hashem Malayas Mishkan. So why would you name Parshas Vayakhel and Pekudei if they exactly show them the opposite of what their name is? Okay, base. The Pashas ultimately you can for inference, so the Pashas you can answer. The Pirish from Vayakhel in Pshutei Shamikra meant the Hakola von alle Yidden. What does Vayakhel mean? That you're gathering all the Jews. Fizeh can man euch masber sein die Sheiches von Vayakhel Hashem die Hakola von Yidden zum Lachas HaMishkan welcher wird erzählt lachase. Based on this, you could explain the connection between Vayakhel to the Melechas HaMishkan, which the Torah tells over after. The Inyan from Vayakhel does was alle Yidden seinen geworden ein Kahal is Akdama v'achana zu Asiyas HaMishkan. So the idea of Vayakhel is that all the Yidden become one entity, and that's in order to have the Mishkan, the Hakdama, the preface, the prerequisite to making a Mishkan is that all the Yidden have to get together. Gedei den Mishkan soll sein ein Mishkan von Klal Yisrael, was dem Mikdash für Shechad B'Seich alle Yidin, hat Trumas, wenn da was kol Yachid mi Yisrael, lachas ein Mishkan darf sein, beifen, soll werden Eis Mamen Yachid. Geld was gehört zu Asach Yichidim. In order that the Mishkan should be erected, you needed to have all the Yichidim get together, and the individual money should now become like Ois individual money. I feel the Ois Mamen Shutvim, and not even have money of partners. Yichidim v'chaverin Shutvim, and very Mamen from Emetzias, Mamen Tzibur. So basically, based on this answer, you could say very simple that in order for the Mishkan to be properly instituted, you needed to have the Yechidim, all the money Yechidim basically become not Yechidim money anymore. It has to become a Tzibur money. So everyone had to get together and basically bring all their money together, and then you could build a Mishkan. Und der Fall ist, zusammensammeln alle Yidin Yechidim und machen von sehen in Kahal. So in order to do that, you had to bring everybody together. So Vayakhel. So l'chera, we asked the question, Vayakhel shows you're bringing everyone together, yet it speaks about the details, the Yechidim. So he's saying, l'chera, you could say that in order to have the Mishkan, you needed all the Yechidim to come together to Vayakhel to make the Yechidim money, Ois Yechidim money. So the Rebbe says, however, what about Pashas Pekudei? In Velchas Nitakin Minyan, there are Sachakov and Zov. In Pekudei, it doesn't speak about the Minyan, it speaks about just the subtotal number. Kesev Necheshes. That's one question. Vayakhel is Nitkein Bir Maspik. Even according to Vayakhel, it's not the explanation is not enough. Since everything in Torah is exact, is move on, it's understood. So just like the name expresses the theme of that thing, as the nomen drikt eis nitnar die hakdamet tegen ikri from the sedra. So if you're calling Vayakhel, you can't say that I'm calling Vayakhel because the Vayakhel is hakdama to the Mishkan. You have to say that the Vayakhel is the theme of the parsha, not only hakdama, but it's the theme. Okay, Gimel. Wenn man das verstehen behält, was man geht der Mitzvah von Binyan bis Hamidah, sagt der Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvah. So we'll understand this by first prefacing what the Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvahs. This is Mitzvah Sasei Chof. The Rambam says, "Shesivaron livnei beis habchira la'aveda boy," that Hashem commands us to build a Beis Hamikdash to work in it. Ya'akrava, there you should bring the karbonis. Avaras ha'esh tamid chuli, and there should be a constant fire over there. And this is what Hashem says, you should make for me a Mikdash. And then the Rambam says, that the Beis Hamikdash includes many different details. What details does it include? Shem HaMeneda v'Ashulchan v'Mizbeach, the Meneda, the Shulchan and the Mizbeach, v'Zulasam, and without these, Kula Mechalka Mikdash, v'Zulasam, and besides them, Kula Mechalka Mishkan, they're all part of the Chalakim of the Mishkan. Kol Yikari Mikdash, and they're all called Beis Hamikdash. And Hashem already designated in the Torah a different command for each one of them. So the Rebbe asks, start from verse 10. If the Rambam already says in the beginning that all the kelim of the Mikdash are called Beis Hamikdash, there's an pratim from the klal. For the mitzvahs aseva also the Mikdash, there are all details in the klal of also the Mikdash. Why does the Rambam have to say that the Torah already enumerated and elaborated on each detail? Which the Chayra stresses a opposite theme. As yet the chelik from the Chelkai HaMikdash is a bazundere zach or a bazundere mitzvah, that every single thing in the Mishkan or the Kli HaMikdash is a separate thing. Like the Rambam is saying in the beginning that all the pratim are part of the klal, and then you're expressing that every single thing has its own prat. So if the kelim are all part of if the pratim are all part of the klalim, why do you have to say this whole thing? By saying this whole thing that each one is by itself, you're contradicting to what you said before. So the Rebbe is going to explain now the idea of Vayakhel-Pekudei and then tie it in with the Rambam. Okay, Shloimy, what's the explanation? In the Sheiches zwischen the Kli HaMishkan mit den Mishkan can we learn Kama Yifanim. The connection, the intrinsic connection between the Kli HaMishkan and with the Mishkan, you can learn it. What's the connection between the Kli HaMishkan and the Mishkan? You can learn it in three different ways. Mein de fanem was man can sagen man jeder klar was jeder zu aufstellen von der Pratim. Okay, how do you look at when you have a bunch of details with the klalim? How does that work? So he says like this: number one is you could say jeder von the Pratim is nit kein Metzias b'fnei atzmi. All the details are not in existence by itself. Sein ganzer Metzias is nor was durch der Isachtus kulam yachad v'ern ein Metzias. The whole Metzias is that when they come together, the Pratim, then they become one Metzias, the klal. B'nusach acher, the Metzias ha-Pratim is nor a-hechshet to the Metzias ha-klal. The existence of the details is only a preparation for the Metzias ha-klal. And he gives an example in halacha. Mein dugma lazeh, you can find an example. What's an example? They get the Chatzi Shir, das Rish Lakish is Chatzi Shir muter min ha-Torah. There's an opinion, according to Rish Lakish, that a half volume is muter min ha-Torah. Shas Sabr is written in the start of Tzvei Tanai Shir, but when you have Tzvei Chatzi Shir, when you have two half of a Shir, right, then Nayim Metzias comes a new Metzias. When it's Chadash to Isra min ha-Torah, and then the novelty of Isra min ha-Torah is created, which means to say like this. Let's say Chazer, a Kazayis, a Chazer is Usr. If a person is going to have now half a Kazayis, was you over a half a Isra or not? According to Rish Lakish, a half a Chatzi Shir is not Usr min ha-Torah. But when you take the two shiurim together, you bring them together, it becomes a full shir. The pratim make an Metzias. But the pratim themselves, the details, are nothing. That's one way to look at it. When the pratim come together and make klalim, or make a klal, the first way I look at it is that the pratim are nothing. They mean nothing. But when the pratim come together and they create a klal, that makes a new Metzias. That's one way to look at it. Second way to look at it, you could say that the details are also in existence by itself. But by coming together, they're creating a new concept. Was freer wie jeder prat is for sich, is das nicht given. Which means to say like this. Really the pratim are something, they have a Metzias. But when the pratim come together, they create a new Metzias in the klalim, but they still have an existence by itself. And he gives an example. Like when you have a minyan, 10 people for a minyan. Every yid has holiness by himself. When you have 10 yid in a minyan coming together, so through that you're creating a higher kedusha, and then you could call it a davar shebekdusha. So that's an example that the pratim have their own Metzias. For example, a minyan, every yid has his own kedusha, but when 10 yidin come together, they make it even greater. That's the idea of the pratim coming together. They make the klalim even greater. Gimel, the pratim zayin ze nit kein Metzias chshuv yeder for sich. Be'emes, really, the pratim are not choshev. They have no Metzias for itself. Now, the chiddush is b'shas aber ze werden sachid on his vert von ze a klal. But when the pratim come together and create a klal, then the pratim become a chashivas. So the first way to look at it is that the pratim are nothing, but pratim coming together, they make the klal a nayar metzias. The second way to look at it is that really the pratim are something, like a minyan. But when the pratim come together, it makes the klalim even greater, like the example of a minyan. The third way to look at it is that the pratim really are nothing. But when the pratim come together and create a klal, it ricochets back into the pratim, that the pratim also becomes something special. And he explains, you can explain that this is the idea of the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash. As der Chotzer, the courtyard, all these pratim in the Beis HaMikdash, details. You have the Chotzer and you have the Oyel Meid and the Kiddush Kedoshim. Yeder v'ers b'fnei atzmei, every single entity by itself. Before you have the Metzias of the Mishkan, Kol HaMishkan Kedushasi, is the Tam Metzias Kedushas Mishkan Beilam. So you don't have a Metzias of Kedusha in the world. So therefore, there's no holiness in the Chotzer. The Chotzer by itself, the oil by itself, there's absolutely no Kedusha there whatsoever. That's the idea of the Pratim. But aber nachher wird der ganze Mishkan Mikdash wird aufgestellt, but after the Mishkan now is erected, is Chol HaKedusha, if you had the protest Kechelek, so then it ricochets back into the details of the Pratim. Chatzor HaMeileh, Kodesh Kodashim, Meisif after Kedusha, Klaus, Mishkan HaMikdash. So in short, the Pratim, the Kodesh, and the Kodesh Kodashim, and the oil, and the Chatzor, all these entities before the actual Mishkan was created, they had no Kedusha. They had no Pratim, the Pratim had nothing to it. But now the Pratim are there. All the Pratim come together, and then the Mishkan is formed. That ricochets back into the actual Pratim, that the Pratim become Kedusha as well. And the Rabbi says, Shloimy as Kedusha Sachalakim bleibt afilu b'neisea b'nifrek Mishkan. That's why, according to Halacha, the Gemara in Zvachim says that when the Mishkan was dismantled, when Yidden had to travel, there was also Kedusha there. Other, either according to some opinions that it's minatera, or according to some opinions it's the rabbanon. But the point is that once the klal comes together once the prat comes together for the klal, it goes back into the prat. The prat also becomes to have kedusha. Fine, we'll continue Mitzvah tomorrow. Hey.